In today's video, we will be taking a look at my updated 2024 presidential election prediction between Ron DeSantis and Joe Biden. Ron DeSantis being the governor of the state of Florida, while Joe Biden obviously being the incumbent president of the United States. So this is the map with the safe states filled in. Ron DeSantis at 113 electoral votes, and Joe Biden at 181 electoral votes. So we're going to get right into today's video. Now let's start off with Ron DeSantis' likely states because he is currently behind in the electoral vote count. Alaska and South Carolina are both states that will go to the likely Republican category, as both of those states voted for Trump by double digits, but both by less than a safe margin of 10 points in the state of Alaska and 12 points in the state of South Carolina. Now going to the other likely Republican states here, Iowa, Ohio, both likely Republican states. We saw that in 2020, both these states voted for Trump by about 8 percentage points, 8.1% in the state of Ohio, and 8.2% in the state of Iowa. Both these states did shift largely to the Republican Party between the years of 2012 and 2016. In 2012, Obama carried both of those states. In fact, the state of Ohio was a bellwether for 60 years before Trump ended up winning the state in 2020 by 8 percentage points, but ended up losing the presidential election. Both these states have heavily trended to the Republican Party. Now, the next state will be the state of Texas here. We do have this as a likely Republican state. I don't think that's too surprising either as well. We see that Donald Trump did win the state by just under 6% in 2020. I think that someone like Ron DeSantis is probably a stronger candidate than Donald Trump in a state like Texas. Generally speaking, I think DeSantis won't do as well as Trump in some of the rural areas, but he'll probably do better than Trump in most of the suburban regions. And if you look at some of the trends here, these are suburban regions of the Dallas region, the Houston region, as well as the San Antonio and Austin regions. Those are the areas that really matter if Democrats want a blue Texas. Now, the next state we're going to be taking a look at is the state of Florida in the likely Republican category. We do see that Ron DeSantis is indeed the incumbent governor of the state of Florida. He won re-election in 2022 by a wide margin of about 16 percentage points, and he is a pretty strong candidate for the state of Florida. I do believe that he'll probably win by less than his gubernatorial margin, but nonetheless an impressive feat. Even Trump in the state, I do expect to win by close to 10 percentage points. I think Ron DeSantis will probably win the state by closer to 13 percentage points. Now, finally, the last likely Republican characterization will be Maine's 2nd Congressional District. It voted for Trump by about 8 percentage points. I do believe that will vote for Ron DeSantis by around 6 or 7 percentage points. Now, going to the final states here. Some of the likely Democratic states for Joe Biden: Colorado, New Mexico, Virginia. I don't think that's too surprising. All 3 of these states voted for Joe Biden in 2020 by between 10 and 13 and 14 percentage points. Now, going to the final likely Democratic state here, I do believe Maine's at-large vote will be a likely Democratic state, as well as the state of Minnesota. Maine's at-large vote voted for Joe Biden by around 9 percentage points. This state has been trending to the Republican Party in the last couple of decades, especially some of the rural areas. Going to the state of Minnesota, we do see that some of these areas in the Minneapolis region, some of the Minneapolis suburbs, did end up trending to the Democratic Party, which is not very surprising. These suburbs are getting more and more Democratic because white educated voters are heavily dominant in the state of Minnesota, and those are voters that will be shifting the state to the Democratic Party. Now, going to the final states, these are states that are going to be won by lean or tilt margins. The first state is the state of Nevada. Nevada voted for Joe Biden by 2.4 points in 2020. This state will be very close in 2024 as well, probably closer than 2020. I do believe that, based on some of the trends here, that Republicans will make improvements, especially in the Las Vegas region, where 2/3 of the state's voters are located. I do believe that Clark County definitely will still vote for Joe Biden over Ron DeSantis. This will be a very close state. Ultimately, I do believe that Ron DeSantis Ron DeSantis will still probably lose to Joe Biden because I do believe Washoe County will probably trend to the Democratic Party, and that will ultimately help Democrats. And Republicans in the rural regions, though they are very Republican-leaning voters, those are not really high population centers that will ultimately boost the Republicans' vote counts by that much. You see that some of these counties are very red, they're like 80% Republican, but their vote counts are pretty tiny and slim compared to a county like Las Vegas. Now going to the state of Arizona here, this is a state that has been trending blue for the last couple of decades. Last voted in for a Democratic candidate before 2020 was 1996 with Bill Clinton. We do see that both the largest counties in the state, Pima and Maricopa, about 3/4 of the state's population in both these counties combined, they both trended to the Democratic Party by 5 percentage points, so very impressive by the Democratic Party there. Demographic-wise, certainly a lot of educated white voters are trending to the Democratic Party, and that will probably end up helping them win the state of Arizona. So that will still probably be in the total Democratic category. Now, the state of Georgia. We see that in the state of Georgia, Joe Biden barely defeated Donald Trump in the state of Georgia by a pretty narrow margin of 0.23%, or just under 12,000 votes. We do see that in the state, we do see Democrats end up doing very well here. They have recently, in the last couple of decades, seen the state of Georgia end up trending to the Democratic Party, largely due to the Atlanta suburbs. Now, I do believe that Ron DeSantis is someone who can probably improve in some of the rural areas while simultaneously stop Democrats from growing that much in the Atlanta region. I think that he will be able to somewhat lower the Democratic turnout, as some voters will not be driven up to vote in mass numbers against Donald Trump. So therefore, I do believe that the state of Georgia will probably end up voting for Ron DeSantis. Now going to the state of North Carolina. In the state of North Carolina here, Donald Trump narrowly defeated Joe Biden in the state by about 1.3% in 2020. We do see that trend-wise, Democrats have been doing very well in some of these urban, suburban regions, while Republicans have been improving in some of these rural black voters regions, as well as some of the rural white voters. So pretty generic compared to what you see in other states as well. Democrats doing better in the suburban regions, Republicans improving in the rural regions. Now, in the state, I do believe that these similar trends will end up continuing. I believe Democratic turnout will be slightly lower compared to 2020, same with the Republicans, and I do believe that ultimately speaking, all things being considered, it will be a similar margin as to 2020, by about tilt margin for Ron DeSantis. Now going to the state of Wisconsin. This is a very close one, indeed. In the state of Wisconsin, Joe Biden barely won the state by 0.7 percentage points in 2020. Joe Biden was able to do very well in the wild counties, at least compared to Hillary Clinton, ultimately securing a narrow victory over Donald Trump. Joe Biden overperformed in wild counties by around 33,000 votes, and if he hadn't, then he would have ultimately lost the state of Wisconsin because he only won the state by around 20,000 votes. Now, we do see that Ron Kind's district ended up trending to the Republican Party, and we do see that I think that trend will continue over the next couple of decades. I think Ron DeSantis will be able to pick up some of these lost wild county voters who are just not really interested in voting for someone like Donald Trump, who may back Ron DeSantis, and therefore I'm going to give it to him by a tilt margin. Now going to the next state will be the state of New Hampshire. New Hampshire, I do believe, will be a pretty close state as compared to 2020. However, the state has been trending heavily to the Democratic Party. I do believe Democrats will probably end up winning the state of New Hampshire pretty much against any Republican, with the exception of some very, very popular ones in the Northeast. Now, in this scenario, I do believe that Ron DeSantis will probably do slightly better. I don't believe that Democrats will win by something like 10% in the state of New Hampshire. Nonetheless, I do believe that Joe Biden will probably end up win the state of New Hampshire by around 4 to 5 points, which is on the higher end of a lead margin. As well as that, I'm going to get Nebraska's 2nd congressional district out of the way. I do believe that Joe Biden will win that district. The district has become slightly more Republican thanks to redistricting, but the district has largely remained the same. Now going to the state of Michigan. In the state of Michigan, Joe Biden won the state by 2.8% against Donald Trump. This is by far the blue state out of the three Rust Belt states: Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania. The state has seen more Democratic favorable trends in some of these suburban counties, such as Kent trended 9.2 points in the Democratic Party, Oakland, a suburban county, 5.9 points to the Democratic Party, Livingston County, an exurban county outside of the Detroit area, trended 6.8 points to the Democratic Party. We see that these trends ultimately will end up benefiting Democrats in winning these elections in the state of Michigan, and therefore I do believe that Joe Biden will probably end up winning the state by around 3 percentage points like he did in 2020. Now the final state here will be the state of Pennsylvania, which will ultimately decide the election. Now the state of Pennsylvania, we see the trends here. The one significant trend to the Republican Party in 2020 was that the county of Philadelphia, the largest county by far in the state by population, ended up trending to the Republican Party. Otherwise speaking, we see a sea of blue trending to the Democratic Party. Now, I think that some of these trends may continue. I think that Philadelphia will probably not trend either way, and I think Democrats will ultimately end up improving in some of these suburban counties right outside of Philadelphia. I do believe that Democrats will overperform in many of these counties where we do see that Democrats will ultimately end up improving like they have done in the past 2 decades or so. And I think that Republicans will ultimately end up also improving in the rural regions, but with all things considered, I do believe that Democrats, considering that they did win in 2020, will probably end up winning the state of Pennsylvania in 2024, especially given the rapid trends in the suburban regions in favor of Democrats. Ron DeSantis is also not a strong candidate for the Rust Belt as opposed to the Sun Belt. So we do see that Pennsylvania will probably vote for the Democratic Party by a tilt margin, making the electoral vote count 277 for Joe Biden to 261 for Ron DeSantis. Thank you for watching. Have a nice day. Goodbye.